We are the Beeliar Group. Our subtitle is Professors for Environmental Responsibility. And we're angry. We're angry about a particular place, the Beeliar area, and that is being bulldozed at the moment. We believe this is emblematic, symbolic, representative of a government process that is collapsing. And it's not just here, it's around the world. The sense is that you can take on environmental things and be completely irresponsible. You can do what you like because it's good politics. You can win elections over it. You can just do all kinds of things, breaking conditions and so on. But in reality, this is not right.
What really angers me about what's happened is the complete lack of concern for the public that the government is representing, the discrediting of protesters and the kind of argument by slander that says that these people are unemployed, useless and all the rest of it, as if members of a democratic community don't have the right to say what they believe. And I am also really angered by the fact that it seems as if we can never have a governance process that builds upon itself. We're in a democratic situation in which the previous government does one thing, the next government does the other, the next government may turn it around again, and in the meantime we have destroyed a wetland and we have destroyed bushland.
The Roe Highway, it was a misconceived planning project from the 1960s. The government was told that there were alternatives that were better for the state, better for the environment, and they've chosen to ignore them and go ahead rather recklessly on the eve of a state election to try to do as much destruction as possible to make the project irreversible.
And it shows absolute disrespect for the planet that we share with other creatures, and that provides such beautiful habitat, such deep spiritual nourishment for us as a people. So that's what drives me.
We did a process about this whole issue way back in 2001 that took 2 years, that involved scientists, that involved the public, that involved the industry, that involved all the industries involved, the people who lived near the area, the people who didn't, in a long process of surveying to find out what are the limits to growth for the Fremantle Port in your perception, in terms of trying to get people from all sides together writing articles, in terms of doing an incredibly thorough multi-criteria analysis to come up with a wise decision that's good not just for here, now, somebody's ego, but is going to be good for future generations. And overwhelmingly, didn't matter which group you separated out, Row 8 was not the conclusion.
Well, there's a claim that this is setting the standard for environmental design and construction, which is outrageous. We have these processes in place to make sure that the way that we go about things when we're doing environmental design and construction is done with due diligence. It's done so that we're careful and we do the minimal amount of damage that we need to. This is not being done like that. There's excess clearing, there's more clearing than we need to do. There's no dust suppression, so people who live close by are getting these hits of clouds of dust when they shouldn't be, and when it's quite clear that they've been told not to be doing those types of things. So the health effects, for example, really aren't being taken into account. When should we be taking health impacts into account, and when should we be taking the health benefits of bushland into account? These things just aren't accounted for in these types of developments that the government is trying to push through at the moment, and it's not the only one.
I've got a long history in campaigning about public policy, and I think I have probably never been so angry and never been so sad. The anger is at a government that haven't listened to people's sorrow, and have ridden roughshod over an environment that is suffering. Numerous demonstrations, people called out bulldozer bonnet. And what has happened is we have seen a bulldozing over an environment that is a living creature, a living thing. Trees that suffer, quendas that have been squashed on roads. I find this hard to talk about. There is a sacrilege, and The only thing I know, I'm going to conclude on this, that I can think about is that in indigenous culture, they say we do not own the land owns us. And I think that that's something we have fundamentally forgotten, and it's extremely distressing.
It's really the absence of environmental justice in the whole development of this project and the implementation of this project. And there's lots of factors that point to that absence of environmental justice. First of all, we have the Environmental Protection Authority charged with protecting the environment, able to ignore its own guidelines and policies. The Supreme Court of WA found that they could do that, and I believe that's a betrayal of our ability to trust the EPA if the guidelines that they produce can be ignored at their whim. Then we have the implementation process ignoring the binding environmental conditions, which the Main Roads Department is required to follow, and in not following them they're committing an offence under the Environmental Protection Act. And so we then end up at the point that private citizens have no real recourse because the courts have supported the EPA process. And really the only way forward is to develop an environmental court that enables the public to challenge the actual decisions made by government.
Perth sits in a biodiversity hotspot, and we've lost 80% of our wetlands on the Swan Coastal Plain. So you would think that we would have the best environmental protections on the planet, and yet the Beeliar wetlands are being cleared without due process and without due consideration of that biodiversity. One of the really serious threats to biodiversity and to wetlands is fragmentation. So now we seem to think that wetlands are swimming pools with tiled edges, that we can go right up to the edge and it doesn't make any difference. And this really makes me angry, because it really shows a lack of understanding of how ecosystems work and how biodiversity functions. So it's important for our wetlands to have connectivity to our woodlands and to our bushland. This is how they filter the nutrients. This is how our turtles manage to go out and lay their eggs and nests, or go out to other wetlands so that they can maintain a sustainable population. Our turtle numbers are declining because we're not looking after our systems. And the thing that really gets to me is that this is being done for short-term gain, when all of the people of Perth are going to miss out.
What I've noticed is the emotional impact this project has had on people's lives and environments. In projects like this, we are unable to put a value on trees and bushland and wetland, on these areas in urban spaces that people use and live next to. And this project in particular has seen a huge movement of people becoming citizens, active citizens. I see people coming together across all sorts of, social barriers that we would normally, never get to meet each other. The whole set of Kubaluk neighbours have come together who might never have met each other otherwise. And I also see such creative actions happening, and musicians writing songs and holding concerts. And the generation of hope also in beginning to plan replanting these areas, and to create a green corridor that might go from the wetlands to the waves, and is supported by councils and politicians. And this, I think, is really important in giving hope to people that you can make something positive out of this really destructive.
The alternative is a wonderful new port that will enable us to have a gateway to the Indian Ocean and the Asian area. That will not happen for the next 50 years because we're locking in $2 billion or more into upgrading a sailing ship container port in Fremantle that is at its capacity now. It does need to change to an outer harbour in Kwinana. All of the plans were underway for that, and they're thrown aside. So it is very important that we get on with a solution out there as quickly as possible.